Hi guys, I'm just going to be scrapbooking these beach pictures from a trip my husband and kids took to the beach one day when I was working. It was early in the season, so it was a freezing cold day, and I'm just looking through the Studio Calico Elmwood Park kit, and I'm using a Nuts About Sketches sketch for this one. It's actually the one for her design team call, which I actually decided against trying to go for another second term, which I write about on my blog if you're interested in the reasons. And so I have this ruffle, which didn't come in the kit. It was a rack from Sherry, and I really want to use it. So I didn't end up using it this time, but I will use it. I am determined to use it because I love it so much. Here I'm just picking out some brightly colored buttons that I think I might use for accents later on, like at the end of the layout. And so I just picked out an assortment. All I had left in my kit were greens and yellows and a couple of reds, so I wanted some pinks and blues. And then I'm just kind of deciding what other elements I might want to pull in. I still might get others, but I kind of like to put an assortment of things I might use just out so I can have it in mind. The background paper is Lawn Fawn from the Bright Side collection, and then I'm going to use two strips from this PB&J paper by Basic Gray, which is the bluish color with some white pieces on it. And now I'm going to tell you something. Okay, so I have just a tip here for when you're going to make one photo become two, like I did here. This sketch calls for two photos on the top, and I could have just made it be one, but I thought just for interest's sake I would cut this photo into two pieces. And so when you're doing that, other times I have been tempted to just take a piece off on the end and then spread it out, but what that does is what you need to, it's too early in the morning for me to think enough to explain this, but what you need to do is you need to take pieces off from where the gap is going to be. That way this shoreline is uninterrupted, because if I had taken it off on this end, this shoreline would look like either this or this. I can't quite think of exactly how it would be, but it would, you would be able to, it would, your eye would pick up on it. It wouldn't look quite right. So even though it's a really, really subtle difference, it's an important one because your eye picks up on those subtle things. So there's a tip that I hope made some sense. And so now I'm just kind of trying to decide on placement, and I wanted the top strip to be a little bit thinner. And what I'm doing here is just the way I cut it too fast and it ended up being crooked, so that one side of that strip is narrower than the other, and so I just cut it and switched it around so that the obviously narrower part is going to fall under the picture, if that makes any sense. So now it looks like it's the same width, even though it's not at one point. And then I'm going to place my pictures, and the reason I wanted the top strip to be more narrow is just to give some weight to the bottom part of the layout. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do with that gap. I knew I'd put some type of paper in between there, but I hadn't decided what it was, so I just left the space, and I can always go back and change that. I did end up filling that space, but if I didn't, I would have just moved up the bottom strip. So I'm going to use that Enjoy tab, and now at this point you saw my little fingers moving. That was my brain working, saying, wait a minute, I'm scrapbooking beach pictures and I just got the Shoreline collection and the Echo Park Sunshine mini theme, so why the heck aren't I using those? So I went and picked and got the starting with the Shoreline. I love that beach paper, but I didn't think I could make it work for this. And I just kind of tried to pull out a couple pieces that were similar colors, and then I grabbed the Echo Park Sunshine mini theme, and I love the waves and I love those fishes. So I so I decided to use those, and it has some of that same bluey greeny color, that kind of aqua bluey greeny color. And so I thought that that would make nice accents for this. And it would also kind of punch it up a little bit because all those other colors were so muted from the kit that I wanted to add some bold. So those are the two strips. I would have loved for the waves to go two different directions, but the colors that I wanted both went the same direction, but at least it goes the same direction as the actual water in my pictures. The shore is on the right, so the waves going that way makes sense at least. And those are the kind of things that irritate me that, it might have looked fine with the waves going the other way, but I would have been annoyed by that. So these are the little things I do for myself when I'm scrapbooking. And here I'm kind of fussing for quite some time. It's fast forwarded so it doesn't seem like quite some time, but I did fuss a lot with the idea of whether that wave is going to go and fill that gap between the top and bottom pictures, or if it's going to go behind the bottom picture. And basically, the reason I went with going behind the bottom picture is that when I put pictures out on a grid like this, it's a completely different look than my normal layered look. And so with my normal layered look, I probably would have wanted to cover up that gap. But this is just a different look where I kind of the gap gives that clean graphical look with the squares that I would have lost if I covered up that gap with a piece of paper. So I tucked the paper down behind. Did some outlining, not too much, but I did outline that blue paper just so it didn't, just to ground it so it didn't kind of disappear with the bold waves over top of it. You kind of lose the blue paper, so the outlining helps with that. Taking some coffee and rubbing my head and thinking about what I'm going to do next. And then I decide I need to do the circle that's going to be the basis for the journaling and also the rounded part of the title. So I took my purple Marvy punch, which is 3 inches, and my pink Marvy punch, which is 2.5 inches. And I just basically used white paper because I'm just kind of doing placement. So I will choose paper later, but first I need to kind of decide what I'm going to do with the main elements of this page. So I knew I wanted some little flyers, so I thought I'd make those while I think about what I'm going to do with the circle. So I'm just fussy cutting around some of those fishes, and I kept getting mixed up on which way the fish were supposed to go, like which was the top and which was the bottom. So at one point I just grabbed the paper and used the paper as a guide. Making another one, and I'm just trying to pick flyers that have colors in it that match the layout and a pattern that's not going to be too competing with the fish. And so, for example, that pink pattern is quite a strong pattern relative to the other things on the little flyers. So I made sure to put the dark blue fish on that one, so it didn't. If I'd put a lighter fish, it might have disappeared. And then I'm putting the lighter colored fish on the plainer background flyer, which is that gray one with I don't know if that's called a herringbone or what that pattern's called. Yep, it's a herringbone. And so I'm just fussy cutting my last fish, which is the pink one. And like I said, because it's lighter, I put it on the plainer background so it would not compete. And now that I have them, I kind of know what I'm going to do with them. I can experiment with different placement. And at first I was going to follow the sketch and keep the title and the circle down there. And so I'm trying to, I love that hexagon, that chevron paper, but it's just not good for a background for the look I wanted. I wanted it to be an obvious ring. I wanted it to look like a ring, even though it wasn't going to be a ring. It would be just 2 layered circles. And you don't really get that look when you use a pattern that has a lot of white or negative space in it. So then I wanted it to be colorful, but that's why I tried those stripes, because they're a bit tighter together, so there's not so much white space. But really, that more solid pattern is more the look that I'm looking for. It gives it it looks like a ring now. And then that's October Afternoon paper. The pink is from the Hello Summer, and the grid is from my scraps. I don't know what collection it's from. Those are the denim Eric thickers from the Studio Calico kit this month. And So that's another kit element. About half of this layout is from the kit and half of it's from my stash. And now I'm just trying to choose the letters. Those Prima letter stickers are exactly the same color as the Wave and and very close to the PB&J blue paper. So that was, once I saw that, I didn't even look anymore. You saw that I just kind of, okay, that's it. Sometimes and other times I want to look at all the other stuff I have. Then I chose that ampersand from the Basic Gray White Chocolate um, chipboard stickers, which I've had forever and rarely ever use, even though I love them. Then I have that new Alley font, new to me anyways, Alley font from Studio Calico, and my favorite Amy Tangerine Goodness stickers. And I'm going to make the circular title out of those two. So my wax paper really comes in handy for figuring out placement, because you can do something like that, right? Which then I can just kind of experiment with twisting it different ways to see how it's going to fit on the circle. I love doing that, as you guys know, because I do it all the time. And so now it really makes better sense to break up this title than it does to put it beside one another, because it doesn't draw your eye around the layout quite so much if you have the title and the subtitle right beside each other that way, which I'm wanting to keep with the sketch, and I also want to fill that negative space, which, that space between the two waves, I normally put a piece of pattern paper in that space. But for this layout, the reason I didn't is I kind of liked the sandy look of that Lawn Fawn paper. Our beaches here are brown sand, and so I really wanted it to be negative space instead of being another pattern for your eye to have to look at, so that the main element on this would be the pictures and the title, and I didn't want another pattern, so that's why I left it plain. And so at this point, I think I've committed to the idea of breaking up the title and subtitle for design purposes, even though I would have liked to have had them beside each other. There's just not enough embellishment on this page to draw your eye around in another way, so I had to separate the title and subtitle. And so now I'm doing my journaling, which says, it seemed like a warm enough day for the beach, ... until they got there. The first beach day of the season was a bust. It wasn't really. I think they had a good time, but it wasn't your idea of going to the beach. So then I just wanted to bring that down so it balanced out with the A. I wanted the Y and the A to line up a little bit, and I'm going to put those flyers right there. And I wish I had put them like that, but I didn't. They ended up going a different way. They still look good the way they are. I don't mind. And so then I'm going to use those American Crafts shoreline stickers I needed something to hide the bottoms of the little flyers. And I also, when I put flags, I like to put them on something. I don't like them to float on my layout. So I like to cover the bottoms of them with something that looks like a base for the flags. So I'm just outlining them again to give them a bit more presence on the side of that photo, and I'm deciding on placement of all the fishes. And what am I going to get now? I'm probably off in my stash looking for something. What might it be? Oh, it was those hexagon dimensional stickers from Stampin' Up. I had run out of them, so I knew I wanted to pop dot one of the fish and maybe some of the flags, so I had to go get more. Now I'm outlining the fish I was going to, and then I wasn't going to, and then I decided to do it. And I'm glad I did, because it does give them a bit more substance. So I'm going to glossy accent some of them on, and then the blue one I pop dotted, and then I glossy accented the bottom one too. And then when I placed that one, I wanted it to be definitely above the shoreline, because I didn't want it to cover the tiny amount of ocean that's in that photo. And then I just placed the other ones around it. And I wished that I had moved this one a tiny bit more to the left, so it had more of an overlapping look to it, but I didn't, so that's the way it is. And then I used the dimensional stickers on that beach bum sticker, and it was too floaty, so it needed something to ground it. So I took that dark red surfboard sticker and put it underneath, and that's going to ground the beach bum because the beach bum was too tiny to balance off all of those big flyers, so the surfboard gives it a bit more grounding. And now at first I'm going to put my title so that it sort of overlaps with my embellishments, but then I decide that I actually don't want those things to read as one. Like it seemed too busy and it seemed like my subtitle was going to get lost. So in a minute here, I'm going to move all of those letters over. And I'm going to experiment with doing some, scattering a couple of those buttons that I picked out. Because I picked them out at the beginning, I'm kind of wanting to use them, but it's not really working with the layout. So I put them down and think about it for a little bit, and then I decide, no, I don't really like that. It just kind of, again, because I'm going for a more graphical, clean and simple look, when you scatter buttons, it kind of takes away from the overall shape. Like I liked that kind of bunch of rectangles and then some lines coming out of it, and then that circle in the middle kind of softens the whole thing. And when you scatter buttons around it, it just kind of lost the overall look that I was going for. So here I am moving that subtitle over just a wee little bit. It probably could have gone over even a pinch more, but I did want to have lots of negative space on the left. Oh, sorry, on the right of that. And then I just popped in a little Tweety bird because I love them. And so there's a close-up. There's how it all came out. So thanks so much for watching, you guys. If you have any questions or comments, just let me know, and have a good week.